Hi guys, it's Janae and welcome back to my channel. Also, if you're new here, I post new videos every week, and today I'm going to be discussing Aladdin. More specifically, I'm going to be discussing the live action adaptation when compared to the original animation by Disney, and I'm going to be talking about why I have the opinions that I have about it, and also kind of touching on the other things that I will be addressing this month in my Disney themed month. So yeah, let's get into it. So I won't lie, I was totally ready to tear the live action adaptation of Aladdin to shreds when I saw the photos of Will Smith blue. I mean, my mind kind of just went, no, I don't want to associate with that. I don't want to look at that. I was so unimpressed by it. Like, that was all that came through my mind. Like, I was like, you've got to be joking. And let me start with that because it seems like such a weird thing to be upset about, but it just kind of felt so fake, which I mean, what kind of person am I to be like, yes, Aladdin, that magical movie, very real, obviously it's not supposed to be real, but it felt like they were treating the entire production as a joke. And I was also very weary about Will Smith playing the genie, because even though I know he's a very good actor, I always think of him in very serious movies, and Aladdin isn't really meant to be a serious movie, so that kind of already made me very hesitant. One of the things that I constantly spoke about when I was talking to my friends about Aladdin's live action adaptation, and something that I really feared, was that they would take Aladdin and they would make it too dark. So I feel like I had a lot of negative fears and thoughts, and I almost want to say biases, going into this movie. So I am very happy and surprised to say that I actually ended up loving it. Now, I know that a lot of people had problems with the live action adaptation of Beauty and the Beast, which I also actually really enjoyed. So maybe it is once again a case of everyone else looking at it and then ending up hating it, and I'm in the minority who love it. But I really do want to say that I think it was really well done. For me, and to be fair, I don't have the best ear when it comes to music. I think I have a fine ear, but not like a very judgmental ear or like very good in tune with everything kind of ear. But for me, listening to the soundtrack of the live action was phenomenal. They recreated it so well. Like, I legit felt as if they might as well have taken the music from the original animation and just lip synced it into the movie. That is how legit I felt they did it. I really think they did a really good job. Obviously, they added in some, I'm saying it obviously, you would know this if you had not watched it, but they added in some musical numbers for Jasmine, which I understand because there weren't any in the original, and I get that because they were trying to have her have more of a presence in the live action than she really had in the animation, and they wanted her to have more gravity and impact on the actual story than she did in the animation. They did give her 2 songs. The first one, well, actually it was 1 song, but she sang it 2 times, I think. So the first one I actually thought was well done. It was short, it was had a mission statement and a personality thing going on. Really enjoyed it. The second time it came up, it did feel a bit, I don't want to say stupid, but I could have done without it. It kind of felt like it took away from the heaviness of the moment. For some people, they might disagree completely. For them, maybe like seeing the shift or the determination throughout is what made it for them in that moment. But for me, adding music to a moment that was otherwise very heavy just felt very unnecessary. So yeah, that was one thing in the music that I didn't really like, but otherwise they really did amazingly with the music. So one check mark done. That was something that I had a real problem with the Beauty and the Beast adaptation, because I feel like if you're gonna take a song that everyone knows like the back of their freaking hand, then it better be exactly like that song. Like, I don't want to be going off on my, Gaston song, doing it, having fun, jiving, and then suddenly the Gaston's sidekick, like, goes off onto this weird tangent in the middle of the song that just throws you off the groove completely. So I think they did a fantastic job in the Aladdin live action, especially in comparison to how they mangled the songs with Beauty and the Beast live action. So that for me was a tick that they got so right. I was so satisfied. I was so happy. That being said, I do want to discuss the situation with Will Smith. I fully obviously stated that I had my apprehensions about him as the genie. I know he's a very good actor, but he seemed too serious to be able to pull off the genie. It's obvious from just one clip of the original animation that the genie was a very funny guy. And I also had my doubts about anybody being able to replace or live up to Robin Williams' amazing performance of the genie. But I I'm happy to admit that I think they found a very good middle ground. They actually kind of managed to make the blue thing work. I think the way they incorporated it into the story worked very well as the way that they started the story. I think, yeah, it really works. I really appreciated it. And there's this one character who's like in the beginning and the end, and she's like, I don't want to spoil it, but like, she's amazing. She's like related to Jasmine in a way. I don't want to be too specific, but I love her. Like, I love her so much. I think they really did the genie justice. I think they thought it through very well, and you can see that like the characterization of Genie as a funny comedy relief, but yet deep character was lived through and was, they were really loyal to it. I think they did it total justice, but they didn't try and outdo Robin Williams, which I think would have done major damage to the deliverance of the character if they had been like, oh, we can do it better, or like, they actually did it wrong type of thing. I think they did it with respect to the original Genie and the original genius of Robin Williams without trying to impersonate him or like one-up him or anything like that. It felt very pure. It didn't for me come across as condescension. It just worked. I'm so happy to say that it really just worked for me. I think he was very humorous and just as over the top as was needed. And yeah, no, I'm really impressed. But since I'm so obviously satisfied with the soundtrack and so on, I do want to move on to address the two things that were my biggest concerns. Firstly was the tone that they would take with the adaptation. I think they were spot on. They added in some moments that had me experiencing the worst case of secondhand embarrassment that I've experienced since watching Johnny English. So props to them for accomplishing that, but I do think it was a very nice touch having the genie suffering with the audience. So yeah, I actually think it worked very well for setting the tone of the entire adaptation and like basically telling the audience, hey, this is how we're gonna roll with it. I think everything leading up to that already told us enough of that, but just the fact that they were keeping up with this comedy vibe adaptation, I really loved it. There were some very dark moments when you look at the Beauty and the Beast adaptation. They didn't exactly feel out of place there, but I'm glad they didn't do that for Aladdin. Aladdin's always been a very fun, quirky kind of animation, and I'm so glad that they stuck to that, and it really brought back the nostalgia in such a beautiful way. I think they did a fantastic job with the tone. I laughed so many times throughout this movie where I was basically like choking, and my mom had to be like, you know, come on, you can't die in the middle of watching Aladdin. So yeah, it just I want to like commend them on doing that, on sticking to it, on not going completely dark with it, because if you want to talk about Disney adaptations that took it too far. So what I wanted to do originally was review the different live action adaptations for Disney month and tell you what I didn't think they did wrong and what they did right. And in an attempt to do that, I would then also look at the Twisted Tales series, which is a series of books that Disney released that's basically based on the original Disney premise, but then with a twist. So instead of the normal Aladdin, what if Aladdin never found the lamp, you know? So what would have happened if the magical event that propelled the story into being as we know it never occurred? How would the love story still happen? And I thought this was a fantastic idea. I was like, oh wow, that's so cool. I'm gonna read it and I'm gonna try and incorporate it into each of my live action things as like this is how they could have maybe approached it instead of just doing an exact copy and paste of the animation into live action. Like they could have done what Maleficent did and like taken it a whole different, you know, direction. So what would have then happened had, you know, the magical event never transpired? So I thought that was really cool. I thought I'd totally incorporate it into like this review. That's why that was the first one that I read, was the Aladdin adaptation. So I mean, I suppose I should be grateful because reading the Aladdin Twisted Tale showed me how truly terrible and that adaptation could have been, how truly terrible a live action reimagining of it could be, because that Twisted Tale, in my opinion, was everything that is ever wrong with adaptations. I have a lot to say on that, so I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to be doing a video on entire Twisted Tale series at the end of the month, so I have some time to read the various authors' interpretations of this task that they were given, to see if maybe it's just the one author who totally went ham with the things. So yeah, that'll be a discussion for later, but it truly did give me an appreciation for Disney's understanding of their own story, because it did everything that I feel was needed to make the adaptation as much of a success as it could have been. I think there will always be people who will have like just a standard no on someone trying to capitalize on their nostalgia, which I think is completely fair. But in this case, I feel like they really did Aladdin justice, and I feel like the love that the creators for the live action had for the original really showed through. It seemed like they were working on enjoying their own nostalgia and not just capitalizing on someone else's. So I think it really showed through, in my opinion. I think they did a fantastic job, and I would really recommend this to anyone who loves the original animation, and I would also recommend that if they decide to continue with this campaign of redoing the animations into live action adaptations, then please, for the love of all that is good and pure, do it as well as this one was done. Okay, so with that very rambly review out of the way, I think the tone is very important, and I think all the set pieces was there, as well as the music, because the music's always been such a big part of the Disney original animations. So I really appreciate the fact that they took all of that into consideration, and I think it really showed in the quality and the love that the audience seemed to have for the original. So I am really appreciative of this, and yeah, I'm excited to discuss the other adaptations and why I think some of them worked and why I think some of them didn't. And then I'm very excited to end off this month's things with a tearing down of the Twisted Tales, because damn am I disappointed. So that is what is on the menu for the rest of the month. I hope you guys will tune in for that. If you want to contact me on social media, the links will be down below, as well as my Patreon. And otherwise, I'll see you guys again next time. Bye!